You're listening to the Global Ed Podcast, where educators share inspiring and thought-provoking stories from around the world.
In this episode of the Global Ed Podcast, I'm speaking with the head of Dulwich College, Singapore, Mr. Nick Magus. Welcome to the Global Ed Podcast, Nick.
Thanks, Kevin. Good to be here.
Nick, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you ended up being here in Singapore?
Sure. So I'm a teacher. I've been a teacher now for 34 years. I've taught in state schools in the UK, and then my wife and I in 1998 decided to have a bit of an adventure and go overseas for 2 years only. And 27 years later, we're still here. So we went to Kenya originally. We were there for 8.5 years. I got my first headship there. And then we found ourselves in China. I was the founding head of Dulwich College in Suzhou, just to the west of Shanghai. And I've been in Singapore as the founding head here for the last 13 years. And the college is currently in its 11th year of operation. But as some of you may know, this is my last year. So this is my last term, and I'll be moving on shortly and starting as a new position as the CEO of as a group of schools from August the 1st. And I'm going back to Kenya, so forgive the pun, but it's the circle of life, quite literally.
Wonderful. I'm interested in speaking to you today about the establishment of a school in Singapore, from basically just a field through to being a thriving school as Dulwich is at the moment. But before we get into that, could you tell me a little bit about your journey in China and how that led you to become the founding principal in Singapore?
Yeah, so it's an absolute honor and a privilege to build a school from scratch, and I've had the luxury of doing it twice. But of course, it's actually something for which I have no training whatsoever. And so therefore, when I found myself in China, I really didn't have a clue what I was doing, to be honest. But thankfully, I was part of a group of schools, and I had a fantastic project manager who held my hand. And you've just got to sort of hit the ground running. And it's the most fantastic opportunity, because there's no better way to really understand how a school works than to build one from the ground up. Because you have to cover every single aspect of school life. It's not just the academics. It's not just about meeting with parents and about recruiting students. It's about finance. It's about construction. It's about taxation. It's about being the HR person, and you really have to sort of be a jack of all trades. So it's been a wonderful opportunity. I enjoyed it, and then so when Dulwich College International came along and said, well, we'd like you to open a new school in Singapore. The challenge of opening up a school again from scratch, plus the attraction of Singapore, meant that I bit their hand off.
Was it just the attraction of coming to Singapore that made you jump in so fast, or was there a part of you that was excited about the challenge of opening up another school from scratch?
Yeah. So I think, being very honest, we lived in China. We used to come to Singapore on holiday. And I'm not sure whether it was the local cuisine, the weather, or the fact that they had Marks and Spencers here, which ticked all the right boxes for us as a family. At the time, my children were 4 and 6, and we just saw it as a lovely place for our children to grow up. And then, the Suzhou project was fabulous, but this was on a whole different scale. This was much bigger, much grander, more aspirational. And to have that opportunity again, learn from your mistakes, that blank canvas to create something truly unique, something truly original. What an absolutely wonderful opportunity. So it took me about 3 seconds to decide.
Singapore is situated in Southeast Asia, just off the southern tip of Malaysia. One of the smallest and most densely populated countries in the world, Singapore is a breeze to explore. Nothing is more than an hour away from the central business district. When the city became a republic in 1965, Few thought a country with so few resources and of vastly different ethnic groups could succeed. But succeed it has, on an unimaginable scale.
So when you arrived, tell me what the site was like, where the college was going to be. And before we go through the development of the college, can you give me an idea of what it is like today?
So when I first saw the campus, it was a greenfield site. It was 5 hectares, 50,000 square meters, and it was a field. It was a field with a few trees dotted around on it, and there was nothing else. So we started construction in 2012. The college opened in 2014, and it opened with 884 students from age 2 to age 13. Now, there's a reason why schools don't open with 884 students, because it almost killed us. But we opened with 884, and then we grew exponentially after that. We were at 1,300 the year after, 1,700, 2,000. We grew organically year on year up towards IGCSE and then into the IB diploma years. And we currently have 3,000 students on roll from 60 different nationalities.
And how many staff do you have at the college?
Well, directly employed teaching and academic and business support staff, plus our contracted staff, so cleaners, security, catering, buses. We're close to 900 adults. So 900 adults looking after 3,000 children. Now, when you throw parents into that equation as well, I often say to people, we're not actually leading a school here. We've got about 9,000 stakeholders. We're actually leading a small town.
Yeah, absolutely. And with alumni on top of that, the number gets quite large. So going back to the beginning, how many staff did you start with? And what did the initial stages of development look like?
So when we first arrived, there were 4 of us. So there was the project manager, we had the company lawyer, and we had an accountant, and we were based in a temporary office in the central business district, which was pretty grim and miserable. I'm a teacher. I need the energy of a school. So and then we moved to a more established site and set up our sort of admissions office, which was in Novena. And then we had 2 years, which seems like a lot of time, but it was the quickest 2 years ever. 2 years to build the thing, to recruit some teachers, to find some students, and then to get systems, processes, procedures, resources, policies, and all of that. And that was what we then spent the next 2 years doing.
Yeah, I'm sure it was a crazy busy period of time for you all. What were some of the challenges that you experienced? I'm thinking things maybe like construction, recruitment, and enrollment. Yeah,
I think it's from a construction point of view. As I say, I had a wonderful project manager. It wasn't. Yeah, I mean, the challenge was that it's Singapore, so as there should be, there are lots of processes and procedures and policies. They are very tight and rigid in terms of planning permission, and you have to work through that. And there's no negotiation there. So that wasn't a frustration. It was just challenging to work through, bearing in mind that we had a 2-year time frame to get the school ready. And when the school opened, it was still a bit of a building site. So we just about made it by the skin of our teeth. So that was that. I think in terms of the recruitment of our own people, I had a very strong vision for the college and what the college would be. And I was truly passionate about it. And I met with a lot of people, and that, I'd like to put it down to that, the allure of my enigmatic style of leadership, but I think it was more to do with the fact that it was in Singapore and the sun shines a lot and the food is great, which meant that in terms of recruiting teachers and administrators, no problem at all. People were queuing up, a new adventure, so that was really exciting. What was more challenging, of course, was approaching prospective parents. So what did we have to sell here? Well, of course, we had Dulwich College in London, which they were all aware of and respected. We had our schools in China, in Korea, which again were very well respected in that Asian context. But of course, the market here was extremely competitive, is extremely competitive. We have some of the finest international schools in the world here. And so, we needed to have a compelling message. The vision needed to be very clear. What was going to be our USP? How were we going to be different? And I was on the 27th floor of an office block with 4 people. So I would go out and meet prospective parents. I would meet them in Starbucks, and I'd talk about what our vision for the college would be. And I would go to their house in the evening because many of them were working. I'd go to their house at weekends. So I just gave of my time, and I visited these people wherever they wanted to meet with me. And some of them were sort of hooked from the start and said, yeah, it sounds great, we're really interested. And others were like, yeah, not for me, thanks very much. So I was very much the second-hand car salesman to begin with.
You mentioned, Nick, that you had a strong vision for the school. What was it, please?
Sure. So my vision was really very simple, and it was very, very clear. I had this blank canvas. I was coming to Singapore, and I knew that with the type of teacher and administrator that I could attract to Singapore, looking at the clientele, looking at the parents and the roles that they had and the schools that were here already, I had this blank canvas, and I came here quite simply to create my vision was to create one of the best schools in the world. Not one of the best schools in Singapore, not one of the best schools in Asia, one of the best schools in the world. And that might sound a bit naff, really, but that absolutely was what I was here to do. And I was not going to rest. I was going to leave no stone unturned. I was going to find people who wanted the same, who wanted to create something truly special, a legacy, my magnus opus, if you like, that I could reflect back on. And in 10, 15, 20, 25 years' time, be amongst a group of people who can say, I was there, I built that school.
They say, you remember school as the best years of your life. At Dulwich College, Singapore, there are so many opportunities. We're making the best memories every day.
When the college first opened, what was the response, and were there any key decisions that you made that really got it going?
I think I think we were very fortunate with our timing, because at that moment in time, there was a shortage of places for international schools, especially if you were looking for that sort of British style of education. So there were long waiting lists at all of all of the international schools here. So we went live with our sort of marketing in the January, and we would organise 4 sort of small open mornings a week at our office in Novena, and we were just not prepared for the interest. We were inundated with interest, and then it literally became a 14-hour day just trying to give everyone as much time as possible to share that vision, to talk about what we were going to do. It wasn't for everybody. It's not everyone's cup of tea. I think we were very honest about who we were and what we were going and what we stood for and what we aspired to do. Not everyone agreed with that, and they walked away. But we were staggered by the interest that it attracted. Which ended up with us opening with 884 students.
I'm sure that you learned a lot going through this process, but what would your leadership advice be to any heads who are thinking of or are even currently opening up a school for the very first time?
Yeah, I mean, leadership is not about an individual, but in a startup school, maybe that's a little bit different. And as the leader of the school, as the person that's selling that vision, you've just got to be omnipresent. So you've got to be absolutely everywhere, talking to people, speaking to parents, reminding them about, what we stand for and what we're going to do here, working in partnership with them, but also, working with colleagues, attracting new colleagues to join us because we were expanding. We went up by another 400 students year on year, making sure that you've got people that share that vision, that are passionate, that are excited about it, constantly reminding them, this is what we are, this is what we stand for. And you absolutely, there was some key things here. One, you cannot settle for second best. You've got to, no matter how tired you are, no matter how small it might seem, you've got to make sure that you don't let your standards slip at all, that you keep driving that vision all the time. I mean, a quote I love is, if you're too big to look after the small things, you're too small to look after the big things. So concentrate on that detail. And then really, really key, be honest. Be honest. If you make a mistake, be honest. If you're honest and transparent about it, most people will forgive you once. Don't do it twice, because then it starts to border on incompetency. But most people will forgive you once. But don't try and BS people. Be honest, be transparent, work in partnership with people, own your mistakes, correct them, move forward, but never compromise on quality, never compromise on the vision. And you've got to drive that, and you've got to be, as I say, omnipresent, and making sure that everyone buys into it and everyone continues. And if they don't buy into it, if they can't sustain that standard, then this isn't the right place for them.
As the college got started and you moved out of the opening stage, what was your strategy to make sure that the college kept growing, it kept developing, and it kept moving towards realising the vision that you had for it to become one of the best schools in the world?
Yeah. So, I mean, there are different ways to look at it. First of all, there was the physical building. So we had basically about 5 building phases. So the school, there was always builders here for the first 10 years. The builders were here. So we built what we call Ducks, which is our infant school and the junior school. And then after 2 years, we opened the Performing Arts Centre and our senior school. And then, delayed by COVID, we opened the Greenhouse, which is our innovation hub. So there was always construction work going on. So there was always that challenge, excitement, opportunity that you are occupying, new buildings, new learning spaces, and how are you going to make those work? So that's one thing. But also, it was really a journey. So we started off, right, we want to be one of the best schools in the world. Not very creative, not very imaginative. But then I sort of switched tact, really, and then I started thinking a lot about the old Jim Collins, good to great. And that's when it was probably within our second or third year that I started using that phrase all the time.
Good to Great by Jim Collins is a book about how some companies that are average become the industry leaders and others fail when they have the same opportunities.
We wrote in Good to Great that big things happen by pushing on a giant heavy flywheel. You start pushing in an intelligent and consistent direction, and after a lot of work you get one giant slow creaky turn. But you don't stop. You keep pushing, and you eventually get 2 turns, and 4, and 16, and 32, and 64, and 100, and 1,000, pushing, cumulative, consistent momentum, and at one point it's 100,000 and 1,000,000 turns in that flywheel. Big things happen because you do a bunch of little things supremely well that compound over time.
People will be glad to see the back of me here, because they're tired of hearing me talk about good to great all the time, because I must mention it 5 times a day. What does good to great look like? Is it good to great? If it's not good to great, then we're not interested. So it was exploring, what does good to great look like? And by this stage, it's not about me. It's very much the community. We're a large community now. We're engaging with teachers. We're engaging with parents. We're engaging with students. And I'm asking them the question, I can't do this on my own. What does good to great look like? And we start coming up with ideas about that. And one of those first iterations of what good to great is or looks like is it was about that personalization of learning. So in a large school, we have large schools here in Singapore. How can you make sure that every child is an individual? How can you make sure that they're not just a number or a statistic? So how can we personalize that learning journey? So we spent a lot of time digging down into the detail of that. And that was our focus for many years. And then I think really in the last 5 years, there was another epiphany, if you like, in that we came to the realization that good to great is all about school culture. It's all about school culture, and this is the holy grail now. This is the sort of the end, the final destination. It's about that establishment of a school culture. So you decide what culture you want, you decide what the culture is that you'd like to create, and then you set about achieving that culture. But of course, the problem with achieving and creating culture is that it takes a long, long time. This is not something that you can do overnight. You can't put it on a school improvement plan and say in 3 years' time, we'll have a better school culture and it will look like this. It's the journey from good to great. That journey never ends. The journey is actually more important than the destination, but everything is about culture.
Yep, 100% agree with you there. But Nick, I'm interested to know, how do you keep the momentum going of good to great so that it remains fresh for your teams and also to keep people striving on that journey towards the vision?
Well, I think the whole good to great bit was that's very much a repetition. But you would qualify it with some ideas, some new ideas around that. So one thing we introduced, and we do it every year now, and as to your point about we don't lose sight of the vision, we don't lose sight of the direction, we don't lose sight of good to great, but we need something to keep us fresh and alive. So we introduced a whole college-wide theme every year, and it would depend very much, it would be linked with our school improvement plan, it would be linked to where we believed we were at in terms of our culture and where we wanted to take that culture next. So over the years, we've had many different themes. So we've had things like Thrive, Reconnect, Rediscover, Reignite. That was when we came out of the COVID years. Live Worldwide, Kindness, Going to the Moon. When it was the 200th anniversary of modern Singapore and the 400th anniversary of Dulwich, London, we had My Heritage, My Home. And so we had these themes. And again, I would challenge the entire school community to take ownership of these themes and to live these themes. And what could we do to improve student outcomes and community cultural outcomes by embracing these themes, creating that sense of identity, that sense of belonging, that sense of being part of something, unique and special. Realizing that if it's going to be special, we can't compromise on quality. We've got to focus on the little things, as always. But we have a very clear idea about where we're going. We've got the bus. Let's get on the bus and let's go.
Nick, what's your advice to leaders who are looking to go from good to great? And what have you learned about yourself going through that journey?
I think one, it's the importance of building that team around you. When the college opened 11 years ago, I had my fingers in all the pies. I was doing everything. Okay, but of course, it's impossible to do that in a school which has got 700-800 students plus, and it's the last thing you want to do because it's not about an individual. And so, once I built that team, and the success of this school is built upon the incredible individuals that I have had the privilege of working with over the last 13 years. Brilliant, brilliant people. I always say to anyone that cares to listen, I will never work with a better team, with a better set of people than I have had the pleasure of working with here. They are truly inspirational. We have a core of about 30 people who are still with us. Been with us for 11 years. They bought into that building site. They bought into the second-hand car salesman 13 years ago, and they're still with us now, and they drive this place forward with passion and energy. So get the right people on the bus. And conversely, if the wrong people are on the bus, don't be frightened of getting them off. Okay? So get the right people on the bus, and off you go. There are other things that I've learned along the way. I think a key thing for me is the importance of active listening. I think it's probably my biggest single leadership takeaway over the last 10, 11 years. As you probably gathered, I do like the sound of my own voice, and I do tend to dominate things, and I've got very, very clear, very strong views and opinions on things. But I've learnt that there's no point in having these wonderful people all around you if you don't shut up and actually listen to them. So the importance of active listening, and not just listening to answer, which I was terrible at. So someone would be saying something to me, and I wasn't listening to what they were saying. I was just thinking about what I was going to say in reply. So truly active listening, and making sure that you learn from these people, because that really will make you so much better. And then another nugget that I'd like to share, because that I've learned over the years, because as school leaders, we know that it's a wonderful job, but it's an extremely challenging one. And there are times when it's very, very difficult, and you're laying awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, staring at the ceiling, and it's the loneliest place in the world. And the best piece of advice that I've received, and I pass on to all that will listen now, is no matter how bleak and desperate it is, it will pass. This thing that has consumed you, that is keeping you awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, one day, in the not too distant future, this will be a distant memory. It will be fish and chip paper blowing in the wind. It will pass.
Nick, it's been a privilege talking with you and learning from you. As we close, can you share with me the hopes that you have for the young people of the college and around the world, please?
Well, I don't really have hopes for young people, because young people are the only hope we've got. I'm fortunate to work with young people every single day, and it gives me tremendous confidence, because I fundamentally believe that they get it, they understand. Never underestimate how intelligent they are. Never underestimate how intuitive they are. They read this world. Yes, that they don't have the benefit of experience, but that experience will come. But try and nurture those values in them. Let them understand, that they are privileged, and that there's nothing wrong with being privileged. But with privilege brings responsibility. Responsibility to make the most of the opportunities, and the responsibility to pay your good fortune forward. And as long as our young people embrace these values, and I see them doing that each and every day, they will be the leaders, the change makers, the peacemakers, the influencers of tomorrow. They will make this world a better place.
Thank you, Nick, for being on the Global Ed podcast. I wish you and everyone at Dulwich College, Singapore, all the very best for the future.
Thank you, Gavin. It was a pleasure.
Next time on the Global Ed podcast.
For South African schools, it's not normal to hear gunshots regularly or to see dead bodies. So Philippi has a reputation as the most violent township in South Africa. So I completely understand anyone who says to me, I love this place, but I feel too unsafe. Completely understand that.
In the next episode, I speak with Octavius Cahoon, the principal of a primary school located in the township in Cape Town, South Africa. Octavius shares the dangers the children face on a daily basis, how the school responds to these, and his vision for the children to step beyond the struggles of their surroundings and shape a different future for themselves. If you have enjoyed listening to the Global Ed podcast, please subscribe and follow me, Gavin Kinch, on LinkedIn.